Welcome back. Hope you didn't miss me too much, huh? Well, I thought that today I'd yap a bit about some of the languages I speak being very generous in some cases, and why I love them so much. I'm sorry in advance if I end up butchering some of these languages, y'all. So I guess the way I'll do this is going in order of most fluent to least fluent. Disclaimer though that some of these languages I have been learning through Duolingo, not sponsored, which I have a very complicated love-hate relationship with because while it's very accessible and easy to learn with, the effectiveness of the actual courses varies a lot, with the non-Latin alphabet languages suffering more so than others. Not to mention the whole thing about AI and how they're using it to create course content and for some audios irks me as well, so I've been trying to find other places to learn, but for the time being I'm kinda stuck where I am. And now I've just gone off on a tangent, so back to the video. The first language we're starting with is English, because it's the language in which I'm the most fluent, though it's technically not my first language, which, if you know me in real life, I will always be using as an excuse anytime I make even the smallest error. As you can probably guess, I learned English from a pretty early age, and basically use it in almost every aspect of my day-to-day life, and I gotta say, it is a lovely language. There are so many words which I could talk about the etymology of for hours, and some of those words just look so tasty, you know what I mean? For all its funky rules and exceptions, it's fun to hear, especially in certain accents. Next, we have Cantonese. 哇，我同廣東話關係好複雜. Let's just say that, in the simplest sense, I can understand it verbally and speak it pretty well, certainly better than my other languages, except for English, but I am essentially illiterate in both traditional and simplified Chinese, which is not great. Then there's the fact that this is my native language, but due to spending most of my formative years outside of my home country, I never really got to develop that full understanding of Cantonese, which I really regret. I have started making more efforts to speak it and learn it nowadays, though, and there's just something really comforting about hearing the language, both in real life and in media, which is when I get to do that one Leonardo DiCaprio meme with the pointing. Okay, then after that we have French. La français c'est mon meilleur ami, mais j'ai trop peur de le parler avec des locaux. I've been learning French in school for a while, maybe 6 years. It's an awesome language, and I'm at the point where my reading and writing skills are pretty good, and my listening is also alright, though my brain will short-circuit sometimes if people are speaking really rapidly. My speaking, though? Oof. I cringe every time I hear myself speak, and just like I said earlier, I'm really scared of talking to locals because I'm so rejection sensitive. I would just die if somebody started speaking to me in English because my French is that bad, which I've heard French people are somewhat notorious for. And yeah, I know it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but Then there's Spanish. Me amo esta lengua, pero mi pronunciación es horrible. Similar to French, I've been learning this one in school, but for a shorter amount of time, I think 4 years. I also ended up dropping it to take some other classes, but I still learn it on Duolingo and I'm trying to keep up with it. I still remember when I first heard the Spanish language, I was absolutely in love with it, and that was why I chose it as one of my mandatory language classes in school. I'm so incompetent at rolling the R's though, I think I deal psychic damage to anybody who hears me speak. Sorry y'all. Now for Mandarin. 我的普通话真的很差，对不起我的朋友们。I guess this is technically also supposed to be one of my native languages. I was practically never spoken to in it growing up though, so my main exposure was tutoring classes, which were absolute crap by the way. I did not end up learning a single thing in those 3+ years of tutoring. Like Cantonese, I'm illiterate, but in the last year or so I've started picking it up a bit from my close friends who all speak Mandarin, so they're like my free teachers, and in all honesty, I've probably learned more from them than from my tutor. I like Mandarin, it's pretty chill, and I can cheat it a little by using Cantonese to sort of slip by if I don't know a word, so it's great. After that, there's Dutch. Het spijt me van alle Nederlanders. Ik heb jullie teleurgesteld. If I got a cent for every time a Dutch person asked me, spreek je Nederlands? And I had to sheepishly respond, een beetje, I'd be filthy rich. My Dutch is horribly lacking, and I'm trying to learn it more on Duolingo. It being similar to English helps a lot, and it's a really satisfying sounding language. But I always feel so bad whenever somebody tries to speak to me in Dutch and I have to say, Engels, because I am not going to be able to understand them. I would not blame them if they just decided to give up on speaking to me. Then we have Hawaiian. Make make nui loa au I ka o lelo Hawaii. Make make au e hiki ia u ke a o ho aku. The origin for this one is kind of random, I'm going to be honest, because my friends were the ones that got me on this language by randomly starting a Hawaiian Duolingo classroom. To this day, I am still the only one of them that has actually finished the course. If you're watching, lock in, guys. I adore Hawaiian and its structure, and I fear that I'm butchering their language. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to find more learning resources because the daily refresh on Duolingo is only so useful, so on the off chance anybody happens to have a good resource, please drop it in the comments. I would love to hear it. Next, there's Latin. Linguam Latinam amo, sed homines Duolingo ebrierant cum illum cursum crearant. This one was the only other Duolingo course I've finished, and it's great, but as previously mentioned, those employees were seriously on something when creating the course, talking about drunk parrots and weasels and whatnot. I think Latin is a pretty complex language in terms of grammar and also noun declension. It is going to be the death of me, I swear. So the format Duolingo uses isn't the best for understanding the nuance of it all. Also, this is some random beef, but the audio quality is crazy weird. RIP to the people who actually had to record that. Anyways, I'm also looking for resources for Latin, so we'll see how that goes. Finally, we have Korean. 한글은 정말 아름다워요. I also love the way Korean sounds, like it's just so pleasing to hear. I started the Duolingo course for this recently, so I don't know very much, but I've started getting better at reading and at least somewhat know the alphabet. Still struggling with pronunciation though, especially because romanization is not very accurate, RIP. I was very pleasantly surprised to learn that Korean and Cantonese in particular have a lot of similarities in vocabulary, and Mandarin also has some similarities, which makes my life a lot easier. I'm aware that Duolingo is pretty bad for learning Korean and is only really useful for Hangul though, so I still plan to look for more resources. So, I guess that's all my languages for now. Hopefully I'll be getting better at them in the future and learning more languages as well. I hope you all enjoyed this random, self-indulgent yap, and see you around next time!